Three Grots in a Vox is intended for a mature audience. This means there will be crude language and discussions of adult themes, especially if we're talking about tactical marines or Gabriel's Seth. Viewer discretion is not only advised but encouraged. All opinions are our own and often given for humorous purposes. Any advice is given largely for entertainment purposes and would probably be ignored. But if you do learn something useful, count it as a win.
And then I thought, you know what, I'm home after holiday, I don't really care that much. And John will tell me everything I need to know. So, that'll be all well and good. Plus, I get to come at this with a slightly different point of view to most of these videos that I've had in a long time, which is, given that I've not been paying any real attention to this for a number of months now, I get to come out of it with a fresh set of eyes and look at it relative to itself and all the other units that are there, rather than bitch and moan about what it was 2 weeks ago and go, wow, everything's changed, it's all horrible, it's all death, and just like look at it in its own context, if that makes sense. Not that anybody who's our audience or our content creators would bitch and moan about changes at all, in the slightest.
Have you had a lot of bitching and moaning, John? I know there's been a little bit on the Discord. I do sort of keep half an eye on it, but I know you did a stream on this yesterday. Has it been all doom and gloom, or are people fairly in your kind of...
do you know what? I don't think there's been any doom and gloom. There's a few people that tell me the de facto that I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, I always get that.
There's always that.
Well,
and then
that means it's a day, doesn't it? Yeah, there's less wine in it.
There's always someone that knows better than I do, and the ironic thing in this, the most ironic thing is, in the Legends datasheet, Gabriel Seth does exist, and he can lead Blade Guard veterans in Legends.
Does he? Oh, in Legends. Okay.
Live, but he can in death.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be the biggest GW troll ever. Good evening to chat, though.
Red. I still say Reavers are going to creep into the meta. How many points is a unit of Reavers now?
75.
Yeah, 75 points. They're very cheap.
I was going to say 75 too many points.
That's still not enough, is it? As long as they're more expensive than a squad of scouts, I'm still not giving a fuck, I must confess.
I will say the scouts have gone up a little bit, I think. Haven't they?
Yeah.
I think they went up a little bit. I'm just trying to get the old list back. I'm just running off the top of my head. They've dropped quite a lot. It's not as much in it as there was, especially now that jump intercessors have gone up by a fair chunk.
Yeah.
I still don't think we're going to see them, but it's not quite as you're absolutely gimping yourself if you bring these as it was.
Still cheaper to get 10 tactical marines, is it? How many are 10 tacticals these days? 140 points for 10 tacticals. I don't know about you, but last time I checked, 75 points is cheaper than 140 points.
You can combat squad the tacticals, that's the advantage to them. But, I mean, they're pretty...
Yeah, but then you lose the deep strike.
Yeah. So,
don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Reavers are good now, because I don't think Reavers are good. I think they're too many points. But at the same time, they're getting close enough to that point where they're just so ridiculously cheap that who cares that they're shite.
Hello and welcome everybody to this first live episode of the Three Grots in recent memory, because I've definitely slept since then and I've forgotten how long it's been since the last time we did this. Welcome to our stupidity and whatever the hell else you want to call what we get up to when we're here on a screen with some points cost and the three of us talking crap about Blood Angels.
Yep. Welcome.
Yes.
We're going to be covering the points cost changes for Blood Angels to start with.
We will, but we're sort of like, I think we're going to just meander around and talk about the changes in general
for a while. Yeah, exactly.
Because there's other armies that I think have had some interesting changes as well. And
Eldar points went down. Who decided it was a good idea to drop the points cost of the Fire Prism? I mean, really?
Well, that did seem like a weird one. And it actually, to be honest, not as weird as the Falcon going down in points.
Yeah.
You've seen quite a few Falcons away Serpents anyway, so making them even cheaper seemed a bit...
I mean, the Fire Prism is like anti-armor firepower par excellence out the entire edition, as far as I'm aware still. I don't think anything's
It's pretty good. I think
But there's been a few changes. I think Eldar actually needed a few changes.
Yeah,
It's
is that
not. I
because they
don't
weren't
think it's going to make much
dominating
of a
the
difference.
tournaments and winning
Yeah.
everything every single time anymore? So therefore, we've got to give them a bit of a buff.
Well, I think one. I don't think it's going to change their overall faction strength particularly. I know there's Falcons went
I'm
down,
going to pour some
But-
alcohol.
but it's definitely when it comes to internal balance. I think it's helped the Eldar out a little bit. You know, Shining Spears. Well, Shining Spears are still rubbish, but at least they're a bit cheaper now, and you might not be gimping yourself by bringing them quite so much.
Yeah, I mean, they've still got a decent threat range. They can fly across the board from
Yeah, absolutely.
20 odd inches away and kill some
And most
Reavers,
of
I
the,
guess. Or some
on the other
scouts.
hand, most of the changes where things have gone up a bit in point.
Or intercessors. I mean, no, not intercessors. Infiltrators. Striking from distance and just wiping out a unit of infiltrators is going to do some good work for your average Eldar army, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the
Most of the
interesting
points
thing,
increase has been fairly reserved as well, I think.
the interesting thing is that they're finally charging different amounts for 5-man and 10-man units. Have you guys picked up on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, and actually, most of those changes I've agreed with, to be honest. Because there are some units where it's just more efficient if you've got a big buff on that big squad. So it makes sense that it's a force multiplier. And the same the other way around.
Well, it's cheaper per model to have 10 Death Company Marines or jump packs than it is to have 5 Death Company Marines or jump packs.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think
And there's other units where it's gone the other way.
Yeah, I think I'm happy with that, to be honest.
I am as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's kind of like baking in some of the Wargear points. I guess the argument is, should they have ever removed Wargear? But I guess,
It's kind of done at this point, unfortunately. So
It's happened.
bad move or right move, it's a move. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so the big Wargear change for Blood Angels is from the FAQ.
Okay.
The Sanguinary Guard can take 1 extra Infernal Pistol in their squad of 6.
Do you think that the change to allowing us to take mixed swords and spears is valuable or not?
I think the spear. I mean, it might be valuable if the spears get a decent profile. Right now, I kind of think the spears are garbage. So
You know, I know. Look, swords are flat out better, but there is. I think I'm trying to think back to your show the other day where you worked. I think there was one edge case where bringing a spear was slightly edged out the swords.
yeah, I mean, the only time you are right. The only time you might want to bring spears, I guess, is if you have 2 squads. And your plan is like that one squad with a sword you're always going to play Red Rampage on, and the other squad you're not going to be able to do Red Rampage because you can only do it once per unit per turn, sort of nonsense. Yeah. So you have a unit of spears just so you have permanently +1 to wound. I mean, I guess that's not the worst idea in the world.
Is there any validity to put in just a spear in a squad?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, all the arguments as to why they wouldn't benefit from it are still there. So
yeah.
So I'm just trying to think of whether there's any reason to. Because to be honest, I haven't got the new models. I don't mind them. There's some things I wouldn't do with them, but I just haven't bought them yet. But I think I might build them as a mixed squad and then just run all the swords anyway, because I think that people really care these days. And that's partially because the new banner only fits on a spear.
Yeah, well, I think I might just build them all with spears, just because I already rebased all my Firstborn Sanguinary Guard with swords. Yeah. I plan to still use them.
I think the spears look really cool.
Yeah,
although a banner can, rules as written, go on any model. Doesn't matter what they're equipped with. Right?
Which is nice. I'm really glad they did that. I'd been really sad if they'd said
I am too. Although I'm worried that if I went to the effort of converting a sword and banner model, that in the next edition they would go, oh, no, actually, you can't, it's not in the kit.
Yeah.
Fair. Well, they do like to do that, don't they?
As they do like to do that. So, all right, so while we're on them, then let's keep going through the sort of the Blood Angels points. Now we've got them, which is a very exciting thing. If anybody's looking at the points document, just the arrows up and down are largely irrelevant at this point because
they are related to what is in the book, the new book, Codex Blood Angels, and not what was in the MFM previously for what they were. So
just these are what the points are. Do we think it's a good value for the thingy that it brings? I think it's the best way of looking at this. Rather than looking at how it's changed.
So I got a question about how I wanted to sort of evaluate this and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So our basic melee jump choices remain essentially Jump Assault Intercessors,
Yep.
Death Company, and Sangard, right? Oh, and
Correct.
Vanguard,
Vanguard
sorry.
vets.
Yeah.
So we got the 4 choices there. How do they stack up against each other in terms of points, cost, and hitability and survivability and stuff? Now,
I think they're trying to make like quite distinct roles between them now. Honestly,
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel the same. Yeah.
how so?
just because, I mean, like Vanguard veterans have no special weapons.
Uh-huh.
I
think
feel
the
like
ju-
Vanguard veterans, with their points
They've
increase as
gone up in
well,
points
and the
now, haven't
loss of the Sanguinary priest, have pretty much dropped off the conversation now. To be honest.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So
Johnny.
essentially, they're only mobile with an invuln, ultimately.
Yeah.
And Sangard can do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you're gonna hit like way less hard with the Vanguard veterans. I mean, you could run 5 of them with storm shields. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have, 5 mobile guys with storm shields. But I also don't think it's meaningful in terms of like you're not gonna get great value out of them.
But if
I
we
think
if
the
we
points
compare
increase has killed them.
if we compare Sangard and Vanvets, for 135 points, you get what 9 wounds in 3 Sanguinary Guard models,
Yep.
with the 2 up, 4 up invuln. And for the Vanguard vets, you get 10 wounds out of 5 models for 110 points. 3 up, 4 up invuln, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, obviously the Sanguinary Guard are better in terms of raw save, but you get 1 extra wound with the Van vets.
You do, but also when you look at the other side of it, Sangard now are only reliable all-armed with damage to decent AP weapon unit we have.
Okay.
They've got good AP, they've got damage 2, they've got a decent amount of strength if you're running them in
Liberator.
Sons of Sanguinius, whatever it's called now, Liberator.
Uh-huh.
So from a kind of like damage output point of view, they significantly outdo the Vanguard vets.
Yeah, so you've got, assuming you're going with swords, you've got 4 attacks a model, hitting on 3, strength 6, -3, 2 damage base.
Yeah.
Plus the attack buffs you get for the detachment that you're in, and then all the stuff.
So hitting at strength 8 and 5 attacks each on the charge, AP 3, damage 2. That's pretty meaningful.
Potentially getting +1 to wound from strats. Yeah.
That's pretty meaningful. And the Vanguard vets just don't have. They're all damage 1 and they're all AP
1.
bugger all.
They're AP 1, and they have lethal hits, I believe. But yeah, it's I think you're right. I think Vanguard vets are irrelevant now. I would maybe take them if you're just if if there's 110 points left. I think that's what they cost now for 5.
Yeah.
It's fine. They're fine. They're nothing special anymore. I mean, I already wasn't taking them. I think the strength of them was the priest, right? Like the priest was making them really, really strong. The extra AP,
makes sense.
The 5 up, it's gone. I think Vanguard veterans will be refreshed probably. Like I imagine next edition, like because Codex Space Marines comes out at the start of every edition, right? So like we're already, if this is October, we're already only like what 18 months, just over 19 months till 11th edition. They're going to have to refresh some Space Marine units in 11th edition. They'll need a big box of Space Marine units to refresh, won't they? So Vanguard veterans
Vanguard Jump Pack Blade Guard vets or something thereof is kind of an obvious direction for them to go. I agree.
Yeah, Jump Pack Blade Guard vets would actually be probably better for them.
They've killed them off on purpose. They sort of like build up the tactical marines. They don't really want people buying them. They don't really want people using them. They're there because there's still going to be some diehards.
Yeah. And they'll do one of 2 things. They'll either scale them up like they did the Terminators, or they'll just bring out a new squad and legends them so that basically you've got to buy the new squad. I mean, everybody buys the starter edition for the new book anyway, right? Yeah. So that'll be what happens.
Cool. Jump Pack Assault Intercessors are still cheap at 90 points for 5 or 160 points for 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is one of those units where I said it went the other way around. Because most of the offenders with the Jump Pack Intercessors was people bringing loads and loads of little squads, jumping all around because they were cheap.
That's fair.
I think we're the only people that are just bringing them as a damage dealer.
Yeah. And their role is still there as having MSU for fast things with breachable who can run around and contest and do whatever, being relatively disposable for 90 points. How's the punchability of Death Company Marines and jump packs these days? Now that they've lost all Thunderhammers and all Infernos, are they just dead in the water? Or do they still have a use? John?
Yeah, I mean, there's a real argument to just not take them and take 2 squads of Sanguinary Guard, I guess. You could argue that because you have Oath of Moment now, 1 squad of Sanguinary Guard led by Dante hitting with +1, another squad of Sanguinary Guard led by a captain hitting with Oath of Moment. So realistically, all your Sanguinary Guard are pretty reliable in terms of hitting. So, do you need Death Company? Death Company also I don't know if you noticed this, that they lost their rerolls on hitting with their ranged weapons as well. So they used to reroll ranged hits as well. I mean, I don't think that made a lot of sense, to be honest, but that's what it had. So that's gone. What is it you get now? You get 2 Infernal Pistols, you get 2 Plasma Pistols, or you can go 4 Plasma Pistols in the 10-man. You do get 3 Power Fists, you do get 2 Eviscerators. I think that there is still play around...
You can significantly buffer units still with Lamatis and Astrath, though, right?
And even to an extent, the regular Chaplain, because the regular Chaplain just gives them +1 to wound all the time, right? Yeah. So I think there still is space in a Blood Angels list for 10 Death Company with jump packs. They've targetedly nerfed the 5-man units for points, if that makes sense. I mean, I was using those 5-man units with Chaplains to be nice and cheap, like trading tools when I wanted the GT. So there is something to be said that, but I think the problem with those 5-man units was before they have 20 Power Fists. Now they don't have anything like that. So their damage output is probably half what it was. Maybe a little bit more than half, maybe that. But their damage output is probably down like 30 or 40%, and their points costs are down like 2% or something, right?
They've still got built-in reroll charges, but yeah.
They're not useless. You're not gimping yourself by bringing them. And I still think bringing like a 10-man squad with like Astaroth in it, with all that dead wounds on every one of the charges, is going to do a lot of damage. But the little 5-man units running around with a character, or a 5-man unit expecting it to do an awful lot, I just think the days are numbered. I don't know why I would generally bring that, knowing the lack of OC.
By the way, chat,
if
we're talking out of our arse, if there's something that we haven't thought of, or something that you've seen or known about that we haven't mentioned, do speak up and say so. If you're a subscriber, use your super chat, make it pop up and make us pay attention to it. All that jazz. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
So, Astaroth got a lot better, right? Like, he's 7 attacks now at strength 9.
I think he's targeted at 105 points.
If you're running gorgeous model.
Yeah, he's sort of corking. So I think like if you run 10 Death Company led with Astaroth, nothing really changed, right? Like, I think they went up 10 points. I think they were 230. They're now 240. I think Astaroth plus 10 Death Company is still a good unit. You get half the time the guys fight on death. A bunch of times you do a bunch of devastating wounds. Astaroth actually has precision as well there, so he can snipe out enemy characters. You bring them in from Rapid Ingress. I still think they're a good unit in the 10, but I totally agree with what you said. Like, I am not going to bring Death Company in 5s, period. Right? I just don't think it's a good choice anymore. I think that what will happen is your 5-man unit will hit an enemy and bounce off of it. Because your 10-man unit bounces now, right? Like, you throw a 10-man Death Company into a knight, you do like 15 damage to a knight, maybe 20 damage if you're lucky. I think I jumped into a Stomper, and I think I did 18 damage with that 10-man with Astaroth. So like still do like 18 damage to a Stomper. It's not bad for a run round of combat, but
no, not at all.
The Stomper's then going to swing back and kill 5 Death Company models, right? Whereas
that's still like 400 points nearly of units, isn't it? Well, it's like 350 points of unit.
It is, 350 points.
Plus whatever other investments you do. The other one that I'm really on the fence about now is the value of the Martes.
Well, he basically hasn't changed, has he?
He hasn't changed, and if you still running the old Death Company alongside him, where it had like really sort of quite a powerful thing, then I think he was quite good. Lethal hits is a great buff. the survivability is a great buff, but I think you're spending quite a lot of points to keep a not outrageously good unit alive.
Well, ultimately, would you pay 5 extra points for Lamarties, or would you pay 5 less points for Astaroth?
I think I'd always pay 5 less points for Astaroth and just rely on doing a bit more damage.
Yeah, I think I'm in Team Astrath at the moment. I don't think Lamartis is a bad choice.
Yeah.
No, he's not, but I just don't know.
But I don't think he's
I'll
as
take it.
strong as he was. And also, Lamartis is melee and his wounds and stuff kind of suck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, he's on 4
Essentially-
wounds and he's like on...
Yeah, you're dropping a little bit of offensive output for a little bit of defensive buff.
But I just think that your defense isn't that good anyway.
No.
And I don't
Yeah.
think it's worth it anymore, which is sad because I just think that he's actually quite well costed. He's a good character, he's a useful character,
Yeah.
but I just can't see an opportunity unless I wanted to run 2 units, but they're too overcosted to do that. That I would want to run the Martyrs over Ashraf. I'd always pick him first.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they should have been the same points cost, honestly, so people could have gone either
Yeah.
way. And it doesn't make much sense Astaroth is 5 points more. I suppose the one issue, or the one thing would be, if you come up against an army that the whole army is damaged to, then Astaroth's
Yes.
strong as fuck.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the
You
one
always
situation.
treat-
Are there any
It's-
armies like that doing well in the meta at the moment?
Custodes. They're not doing outrageously well. They're somewhere in the middle. But if you go and fight into Custodes, then that feel no pain suddenly becomes
Okay.
quite valuable because everything they've got is damaged too.
Yeah. And I kind of hate
But give bounce anyway. So what would happen is, yes, you're slightly more survivable, but without the devastating wounds you get from Astrath, you won't do shit either.
Yeah, that's fair to say. So I think Astaroth has been lucky to avoid the points increase, I guess. Like, his stock has gone up. He's got a beautiful
Maybe they
new
just want
model.
people to buy the new model. I mean, I would. I mean, I'd buy it on the strength of model only. That's one of the best new models they've done. So
You did
props
buy
to
it?
that.
Did
I did
you?
buy it. I actually
Well, they
put money behind that and bought that model. Yeah.
Okay, there you
Yeah,
go then.
I bought this box set, not because I particularly needed some more of any of the units in it, but because I thought Astrath and the Martyrs look awesome.
I think the new Lamarties model looks really good, but I also don't think it's a substantial increase in awesomeness over the original one.
That's fair.
Whereas the new Astaroth is a substantial increase in.
I never
quality over
liked the
original.
old Astrath model. I think
Yeah,
the new one is much
the
better.
axe always broke off the top, but maybe that was
Yeah,
the reason more than the sculpt or anything.
Yeah, so we should talk about Sanguinary next because people are
Yeah.
debating it in chat and asking if
I've
Dante's
got a
worth
question
calling in.
about it as well, so
Have we
they're
got-
definitely worth asking about.
Is there anything else worth talking about in Death Company? We're all agreed we should have a 10-man unit. We're kind of all
Should we
agreed.
just briefly talk about the other 2 versions? Death Company Marines, for some reason, don't get as many melee weapons.
I mean, we
Why?
can talk about them, but do we
And
really?
I think I'd always bring Assault Intercessors instead.
Yeah, do you know what? I said, like, the Death Company Marines and the Death Company Marines with bolt rifles, like...
The ones on
like,
foot have never been worth considering,
I
really.
was going to say, can we use Tony's tried and tested catchphrase where we say just put them in the bin?
They're just a bit shit, really.
They're just not very. There's no reason really to. I don't understand why Death Company on foot get less special weapons.
No.
Yeah, so they had. I enjoyed them and had previous use for them in previous editions for smaller battles with a smaller battlefield where you could buy a bunch of them and you could have them like on 4 or 5 up, feel no pains and all this sort of stuff. And they were dirt cheap and they were pretty cool, but it's just not there anymore.
And what are you gonna? Who are you gonna put with them as well? Because like, are you gonna buy a chaplain for that unit of foot guard? Just bring intercessors.
Yeah.
I don't think the damage output for your unit of Death Company Marines and the damage output of your standard assault intercessors is so dissimilar that I would pick the Death Company Marines and the loss of OC.
I think we've given too much time to Death Company on foot now. To be
Yeah,
fair.
I know. I'm just we might as well talk about that. The bolt rifles. What the hell's the point?
Okay, well...
Overwatch.
No, go on, John. You want to defend this? Go for it.
No, I was going to say, I think I agree with what you're saying. We've given too much time to the Death Company Marines on foot. But here's the question. The Death Company captains, with
Yeah.
their also lack of OC, I'm really struggling to see how I
What the
would
point
use
was.
these guys, because I tell you one thing I'm not doing. I'm not paying 300 points for a unit that has no OC. Like, I'm not even, like Like, I ran those small Death Company before with all the Power Fists, and I still wouldn't run them with no OC. I always found the points for a cheap chaplain to attach to them so that they have OC.
Let's say there's some mad scenario going on that says, right, I really want to bring actual normal foot Death Company Marines. I'm running a Lost Brotherhood, whatever detachment.
Yes.
I'm always going to put a chaplain in it rather than a captain. I can't think of any scenario where I'm going to go, right, I need someone to lead this unit. I want to up their damage potential. I'm going to go with the captain.
Melee.
Oh, wait, hang on. Or I could up their damage potential and give them OC.
Yeah.
Well, and be able to fall back and charge. It's one of our new stratagems. So we it's just madness to me. I feel like there's a chaplain tax on the Death Company, right?
The giving them OC, it doesn't require them having a chaplain in the unit. It requires them being within 12 inches of one. So if you're taking multiples, then maybe you could. Yeah. Because you'll have overlapping auras at that point.
But then your opponent will just precision out those chaplains as quick as humanly possible, and then your whole army falls to pieces.
Got any brains? Yeah, absolutely. It's like shooting synapse creatures.
I'm not sold on the. I don't know why I would run that.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Death Company data sheets. I guess you could argue Lamarcus and Astaroth are kind of part of them. We've got 8 data sheets, and only 2 of them are any use.
How do you feel about that? Well, yeah, we're going to talk about Sanguinary Guard, won't we? Let's talk about Sanguinary Guard.
Do you know what? Let's finish with Death Company. Let's talk about the Death Company Dreadnought.
Yep.
I do have a really interesting...
No. I'd like to hold off on the Death Company Dreadnought until later, because talking about Dreadnoughts is totally different to talking about Assault infantry, if that makes sense.
All right. If you must. Hello, James. James, congratulations. Hey, James. He had his little baby girl this week.
Ooh.
Oh, congratulations, James. Are you getting any sleep yet?
Is she named Sanguina or something like that? Sanguina. I don't know. Lamata.
He says sure.
What else stupid crap can we call it? Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Congratulations, my friend. Well done.
Mephiston.
Brilliant.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, sorry. So we're going to talk about Sanguinary Guard and...
Sanguinary Guard, then, if we talk about jumpy, assaulty things.
Dantita. Yeah, maybe that could work.
What do we think? I think at 45 points per model, it's still pretty harsh on the points, I must admit. 45 points per model for a toughness 4 guy with...
sure, it's toughness 4, but there's the 2 up, 4 up. Granted, they're wounding relatively easily by being shot at, but in melee, the melee buff is obviously quite nice when you... Can
we look at it slightly differently for a second?
Go for it.
We've spent the previous 20 years paying 40 points a model for a Terminator with a 2 up toughness 4 models.
Yep.
Yes.
For the last few years. So, because what we've actually got here is now, and a slightly old, because I know we've boasted the Terminator toughness by point, but we've got a Terminator that's now got a 4 up invuln save and a jump pack for 5 more points. Haven't we, effectively?
I was honestly thinking they're quite good. My question is, you earlier a little bit earlier, John, you were talking about how you take a unit of Sangard with Dante and maybe another unit with a captain. Is there ever going to be an argument now to take 3 units of Sangard?
I think they're too expensive to consider that. But then here's the thing: I do not play. I don't play the all melee Blood Angels type army.
And you never have. You've always been a mixed farms kind of guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually think that's got. This might be one of the biggest meta shifts that we've seen, right? Because the Death Company have had their damage reduced significantly, like we already said, like down like 30%.
Yeah.
The Sanguinary Guard have actually lost a bunch of damage as well because, before you would have had 10 guys, now you only have 6. So they've arguably lost 30 or 40% as well. So if all your melee units are down quite a lot, and like how do all melee Blood Angels deal with fight first now? Well, they can't. They just die. We can't fight to death anymore, so we just die. So, the only unit they could potentially fight with Astaroth, and then it's 50-50 if you're fighting back. So I think, like, if I played against another Blood Angels player, I was thinking about this, and I bring my Blade Guard with their fight first, and, they're strength 7 with +1 to wounds. They're wounding all you guys on 2s, basically. So my Blade Guard will literally annihilate any unit that charges them, be it 6 Sanguinary Guard plus Dante, be it a 10 Death Company. I'll probably kill every single guy. How do you deal with that as a Blood Angels player now that's running an all melee list? Well, I don't know if
the answer is, as you're saying, you shoot them.
Yeah,
so I think that's important.
So I think, let's say you were going to take 3 units of Sanguinary Guard, and arguably you kind of want them led by characters because they get the big buffs from being led by characters, the -1 to hit, the -1 to wound.
Yeah.
So you're going to spend 1,200 points, but then only 1 unit can get +1 to wound. So I just think I think it's very, very difficult to...
Can you lead Sanguinary Guard with the Chaplain?
No, Captain and Dante only.
I think what, John, to be honest, I almost feel like they've made this intentional, that they don't really want Blood Angels just bringing assault units anymore.
Oh, I agree. And the way that it's now appears to be working in that we don't want to auto-take 3 units of Sanguinary Guard, great. Brilliant. Means that we're not going to be worried about them being nerfed every 10 seconds like we always used to be.
I think I'll still only run 1. I've run 1, and probably at the moment, with Dante.
James
okay, so
is going to run...
why specifically with Dante?
Sorry,
People
James
have said that he's fire now and he's great. Why specifically with Dante? For people who don't get it.
He's gone up a little bit in points, but he's had a little bit of a buff.
He has a friggin' Strength 10 Power Fist with AP3 now, essentially, right? Because the Strength is 8, so on the charge he's Strength 10, and he gets 9 attacks. He's hitting on 2s, and he gets +1 to hit, so if you ever made -1 to hit, it's still 2s. So, basically you have 9 attacks at Strength 10 with AP3. I think that alone is brilliant. That will just kill,
I think he's 130 points.
8 to 9 models every turn that you charge, unless they've got a really great Invuln save, right?
Still with +1 to charge as well, and advance if that's relevant. But
Still with
it is
relevant.
relevant.
To charge. And he'll trigger off the Sanguinary Guard's buffs.
Yeah, I mean, when you put him together with the Sanguinary Guard, you get 39 AP3 attacks, damage 2. I mean, with +1 to hit, it's really, really good. And you can buff that more with Oath of Moment. You can buff it more with lethal hits. You can buff it more with Lance. And I guess if you fall to Red Thirst and take lethal hits and Lance, you still have OC because you have the banner in the unit. I think it's just
so 6 with Dante is a legitimate melee threat.
Yeah, they'll kill a knight in 1 turn. Honestly. They'll still. Okay. I know. Some people say they won't, but I did it last week with. I think it was 5 in Dante. They kill a knight from full health because one of them got killed from Overwatch or some bullshit beforehand.
So I think that's all I'd run. I don't think I'd run the 2 units because you can make them quite powerful by sticking their captain in there as well. But that kind of, I just think that might be a bit diminishing returns.
So?
They are very expensive.
Well, I think you've got conscious choice there. I think you either do Dante in the Sanguinary Guard and the Captain in the Sanguinary Guard, or you do Dante in the Sanguinary Guard and then you do maybe Astrath in the Death Company. That's how I'm seeing it. It's
it's kind of where I'm leaning at the moment.
You want to do both those units, right? And then
based on what we've discussed so far, that was kind of where I was
I think you want a couple of fast-ish close combat melee units, and you kind of your options.
I mean, your Blood Angels, you got a ton of melee buffs. You want melee stuff. I mean, otherwise, why are we even bothering? Ultimately,
but then
the answer is because they're cool. But in terms of actually trying to win,
So then, at that point, if we can agree that Dante plus the 6 Sanguinary Guard are the best way to field them, and Astrath plus 10 Death Company are kind of the best way to field them, I feel like you've got room there for one other I want to say a Death Star. Big melee powerhouse unit, right? And the 2 choices that I see for that are Blade Guard or Terminators. And
let's just backtrack a second, though. To be fair, Dante is 130 points, and as you say, he's a beefcake. But a captain with jump pack is only 85, right? So that's a significant chunk of change there.
Oh yeah,
that's not nothing if you're short a few points.
With the buffs you can give to him, what's the enhancement that we're talking?
John, if you put an enhancement on him as well, then that's
the captain could have the fight first enhancement. He could also have the sustained sixes. I mean, that's not bad. I think the thing about Dante, though, at least in my experience, is it frees Oath of Moment up to be used elsewhere, and I think that is valuable because. Like a lot of the times in my games, I want to kill something with like a unit of 5 jump assault intercessors, and normally they won't kill something, and it's like, yeah, but I've got my Oath of Moment free, so that will actually let them kill this unit on the side field. And if Dante needs a buff, like I can still give him Oath of the Moment.
Plus you want to run Dante because he's a badass and the model looks cool.
Yeah, finally.
Which is always an argument. It's always an argument.
The whole of 9th edition, I didn't want to run him.
Pretty strong. I think it's a strong unit, but I do think that I was saying earlier how it's not much more than we used to pay for Terminators. True, but that doesn't make it cheap. I still think they could. I don't think it would hurt for them to be 40 points, but I think if they were 40 points, we would start seeing them spammed as 3 units of 6 again.
So the problem with suppressors at 75 points as action monkeys is all well and good, except for the fact you can't buy the fuckers.
If you haven't got them, you can't have them.
Well, you can buy them in some.
You can
convert
convert
like a
some
Vanguard
blokes
box or
with like long barrel guns or something.
I think they stopped selling it, John.
Oh, really?
Can you still not buy them as part of that big box?
It's Vanguard Space Marines is the box, but I think they might have stopped selling that.
I still remember subbing to this channel in 9th Ed to make John run Dante in a couple of live games. Yeah, Mike, that was cool. I enjoyed that. That was fun.
I do remember that, yeah. So, yeah, I think Sanguinary Guard are good. How do we feel about jump intercessors? I think they're pretty good. But I like running. I like now looking at them as a damage dealer.
You can get them, Tony. Cheap. It's £87 for 3.
Jesus Christ! Wow. Okay, that's how much can you buy 3, 4 on eBay at the moment? Just like 3 of them or something. Is that like
someone says they just spent $160 on eBay to buy 6?
Bloody hell! That's a bit of a spicy meatball. That is. I don't think I want to go that far. You can still
get the Vanguard Space Marines with direct down.
If I was doing that, I'd just like buy a box of 10 firstborn jump pack guys from the Horus Heresy and convert them to have like long barrel guns or something.
That's what I'm.
Or 3D print some nice legal alternate versions that people have done. Yeah, cool, absolutely. Let's do it.
That's what I'm doing for my jump intercessors, to be honest, because I haven't got any jump intercessors. I've been using assault squads. But I'm going to buy that new, very tasty Horus Heresy Assault Marines kit.
Yeah.
Stick a few upgrades in it from the Grey Tide Studios box, and that's going to be my jump assault intercessors.
So what do assault intercessors do these days? You've got the Hammer of Wrath, which is roll a dice and on a fort mortal wound for every model that ends an engagement range. So yeah, you got some output there. You got the the 1 or 2.
We do a couple of mortals and then like 1 power fist and like a bunch of chainswords.
Yeah.
But, the bunch of chainsaws is not to be underestimated.
Oh no, not at all.
If you're playing Liberator.
Yeah. So what?
90 and 160. Yeah, I mean, I could still see a lot worse investment you could do for your army than buy 30 jump assault intercessors and have that be a nice core, whether you run them as 5s or 10s and just like mess around with it from there. Although, to be fair, if you've got like Vanguard veterans that you're not using anymore, then just like say, oh yeah, jump instances now, yeah.
Yeah. I think for me personally, I'm still going to run jump intercessors as 5s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
3 units of 5.
They're not worth 90 points. I think they're worth 90 points.
Yeah, 270 for 15 models.
Yeah, I don't think they're worth 90 points for other chapters.
No, I think I agree with you. They're probably not worth 90 points for other chapters. I'm going to continue to run my double Outrider, double Assault jump intercessors with dump packs because I think in some ways Outriders just got a buff because of this, right? Like, if Assault intercessors are more expensive for everybody, then Outriders are just better and because they remain cheap.
How much are Outriders now?
They're still 80.
80 points for 3.
I'll tell you what has changed though.
What?
The Invader ATV.
Oh yeah, I mean, who gives a flying fuck about the Invader ATV?
He's dropped. He's very cheap now.
Yeah, it could be an action. Like I was trying to think, like it could be an action monkey. That's literally all I can do
as well. I don't think I do anything else.
A 60-point, 8-wound, toughness 5 action monkey that has a multi-melter. So occasionally you hit something with him.
You might melt a guy once or twice, but
yeah,
he's a 60-point action monkey.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
it moves
occasionally
very fast.
you can melt a friggin' like Avatar of Cain from full health if you get lucky. You roll double 6. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, he's lost his rule that used to ignore melter, didn't he?
Yeah.
But so I'm not saying it's good. I haven't, but when you're looking at it going, I wonder if I could make that work for 60 points.
I mean, if you got 60 points at the end of your list, you can't fit a squad of scouts because they're 65. So yeah, I mean, Invader ETV could just be. I mean, it's basically got the same. What is it like? Toughness 5, 8 wounds. I mean, that's pretty similar to what the scouts have. They've got toughness 4, 10 wounds, right? There's like no difference there really.
So it's a bit better save, bit better toughness.
And 12-inch move, I guess.
12-inch move, which isn't bad.
But yeah, I
don't think it's good. But you're looking at it going, I wonder if you can make that work.
Yeah, same as when we look at Fire Strike servo turrets and go, I wonder if we can make those work.
So, Ricardo, if you want your list reviewed by the collective Blood Angels Commander community, feel free to join the Blood Angels Commander Discord, which there's going to be a link to in the video description or this channel somewhere, or that some helpful person will post, preferably a moderator who actually has link posting rights, which is going to be one of us. Or you can go to the Blood Angels Commander YouTube channel, and anywhere in the community section of that where John posts his look at me kind of posts, post as your list as a reply into any of those posts, and that is where you go into the consideration for review in the weekly Blood Angels Commander list review episode when it happens, which is most weeks.
Yeah, I don't. Thanks, Mark. I don't think the Invader ETV is meaningful. Like attaching it to a unit of Outriders to me actually seems so weird.
To me, that makes the unit worse.
Is it anything more than a joke? Is it? I mean, I appreciate it's a little bit less of a joke than Reavers, but
it's an action monkey.
Yeah.
They should have been like the attack bikes. You could run them in squads of 0 to 3, and then maybe there could have been some play for them. I think attaching them to Outriders is dumb. It's just you're attaching a shooting unit to a melee unit that can't shoot when it's in melee. You're breaking
the specialization of what the unit is supposed to be for and the points efficiency of it. Absolutely. Totally agree.
Did you see how bad Fire Discipline Eradicators got nerfed?
Yeah, they got absolutely spanked.
Points to everything, isn't it? Yeah.
The Apothecary got nerfed, the Eradicators got nerfed, the Fire Discipline got nerfed.
It's purely, though, because Gladius, Dark Angels, using that combo in a repulsor has been quite popular lately.
Oh, fair enough.
And Dark Angels as a whole got a bit of a nerf. And it's just a sad byproduct of sharing a Codex means that... Because that was the offending group. For everybody else, it was fine. But it's a bit like that for the Jump Intercessors almost, because... For us, they were great, and for everybody else, they were okay.
Yeah, I mean, that is a problem with some of these points. So I kind of wonder if they could break some of those out. For example, like I think Aggressors are a great unit, but I think 120 points for 3 for Blood Angels, you're like, ugh.
So they went away from having like a full codex for every single sub-chapter and whatnot, where the data sheets were and points were different for every single chapter. And they've now gone to, you go from like a shared codex with shared points for every single chapter. Like you're saying, surely there's got to be some room for compromise in the middle there, where you have the codex being the same and the core rules being the same, but maybe you have, I don't know, 7 or 8 different points lists.
Well, that's what they did with Imperial Agents, isn't it?
Yeah, if you take this model in X chapter, it costs this. Or if you take it in this chapter, it costs Y.
Because I feel like I would really think Aggressors might be quite fun in the new Blood Angels attachment, like with Advance and Charge, with Advance and Shoot and Charge, get in, shoot all those flamers. But I think 100. I think Aggressors at one point were like 100 for 3, like 120. They got hit because of that stupid Fire Discipline thing as well, and they've never come back down.
Yeah.
Should we have a look at the last couple of Blood Angels units, then we'll scoot over to the Space Marine ones in general? I think.
Go for it.
We should.
Super chat from Philip Parigo. Thank you very much. Member for 5 months with us. As Aggressors need to be 2 data sheets, do they?
Yeah, they do. Separate weapons.
And discrete points values based on the power of each one that they have.
Because the Fire Discipline doesn't affect the Flamers.
I get that.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah, so the flamers got a giant nerf because of that fire discipline, and it never affected them. Yeah, you're right, Phil. Thanks so much for the super chat and the ongoing
absolutely
membership.
agree.
And your support. Yeah, much appreciated. Yeah, makes
So,
perfect sense.
so what are the units we didn't talk about yet? So we haven't talked about the enhancements. We haven't talked about the Death Company Dreadnought. We haven't talked about the Bile Predator. Do we really need to talk about the Blood Angels Captain? I don't
No,
think so. It's the same as a
really.
regular Captain with slightly different weapon options for the same points.
So we talk about Dreadnoughts now.
But he does have some. Sorry, can I just say that the Blood Angels Captain has some really stupid restrictions?
Yes, you can. It's not only the Mark Day to be whingy and complaining about things, so go for it.
I just hate that they have stupid, like, why... It's like probably two different people did write the book, but the Blood Angels Captain cannot join the same units that the regular Space Marine Captain is. So if you make that Blood Angels Captain with the Infernal Pistol, this is the problem with having separate data sheets. All of a sudden, he can't join the same units. So...
Hot tip, everybody. If you build a captain or any kind of character, do not put a pistol on him. Just put a holster. Then you can say the pistol is whatever you want for any given moment, and nobody can tell you otherwise.
Perfect, exactly. Because if you build him with the Infernal Pistol, then all of a sudden, like, you can't join Blade Guard.
Yeah.
I think there's another unit maybe you can't join as well, and it's just really dumb. So I don't like dumb things. I feel like I
don't
should call them
understand why it's a separate data sheet. Why can't they just have, like they used to, Blood Angels can take an Inferno Pistol written on his data sheet?
That would be very nice.
Just a bullet point. They can then say Spaceballs can take a blah 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 floss stats.
Then we can't have the 12 or 15 captain army that somebody built in an army list a little while ago.
Sorry, that's it. So the Blood Angels Captain cannot join Hellblasters because apparently if you have an Infernal Pistol rather than a Plasma Pistol, that it's like the Hellblasters are like, I don't even know how you say this, but like, if you don't have a Plasma Pistol, you're just not cool enough to join the Hellblasters. So they're like, they look at that
join Blade Guard now. Brilliant.
They look at that captain and they go, "You've got an Infernal Pistol. You're not in our club. Get out of here. You cannot join us."
Yeah,
because we're
what
plasma.
The hell is this reliable firepower? We don't want that. If you're not prepared to put your life on the line, get out.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not prepared to overcharge your pistol, you can't join us in the battlefield. That's it. 100%.
All the cool kids carry plasma pistols. This is the way. Death Company Dreadnought. Have all the first Company Dreadnoughts now gone? Every single one of them is now gone from legal play. They're all
no. The very very basic one still exists for some dumb reason. Like the one
in
that's
the Space Marine Codex.
What's it called?
Just called the just Dreadnought. Nobody takes it. It's like massively overcosted.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
It really is.
Cool. So ultimately, we've now got two choices of melee Dreadnought. We've got the Brutalis for 160 and the Death Company Dread for what is now 180, which is better than the stupid points cost it was in the book before.
It's still 20 points more than the regular one, but for that, you get the Death Company rules of your rerolls.
Yeah, which is reroll the hit rolls, which is great, and all your weapons are twin linked, so you're rerolling tons of stuff.
And you lose the impact hits.
But you gain the if you get shot, you get to move ability, which is
so you gain
drastically worse than mortal wounds on the charge, as far as I'm concerned.
It is, and you lose your OC, remember, because you're a thing.
Unless you're within of a chaplain, yeah, exactly. But you also get the Feel No Pain 6-up, so
you also get the Feel No Pain. So it's a bit of a side grade, really.
I think it's a downgrade, man.
What, over the standard Brutalis?
Yeah, because I think if you were, like, for me, if I was going to play a Dreadnought, I don't think it can run across the board effectively without getting killed, right?
I agree.
And I don't think Driven by Fury helps that. I think the opponent will either not shoot at it or only shoot at it when they kill it.
Yeah.
So, you bring in the Dreadnought from
20
reserve.
points for reroll all hits, ultimately, in melee.
Yeah, so, like, if you're going to bring in the Dreadnought from reserve, for example, you're probably going to want to charge onto an objective to potentially steal that objective. And I think the Death Company Dreadnought having 0 OC just makes that awkward and difficult to do. And I don't think his ever so slightly Feel No Pain or ever so slightly rerolls to hit are going to offset that. Because the thing is, with the Brutalis having 4 OC, then if you charge like a unit of 5 guys, you probably only need to kill 1 or 2, and then that's your objective, right? Because
Astra's got the chaplain keyword, doesn't he? Yeah, he does.
Yeah, okay. But I just think that the Death Company Dreadnought is a side grade, and I actually really wanted to touch on this Driven by Fury thing.
Yeah.
because I cannot for the life of me find if you're allowed to end that driven by fury move within engagement range of enemy models. Because it doesn't specifically say. There's a bit about it in the designer's commentary, which we looked at last night. And I'll read it to you. Hold on, a bit from I'll just read it to you. It's on like page 13 of the designer's commentary. There's actually a section that says surge moves, right? Some rules enable units to make out of phase surge moves when certain trigger occurs, e.g., Khorne Berserkers. Right, unless otherwise stated, the following restrictions apply to all such moves. Each unit can only make one surge move per phase. A unit cannot make a surge move while it is battle shot. A unit cannot make a surge move while it is within engagement range of one or more enemy units. But it doesn't specifically say if you can end your surge move in engagement range. So
I don't see why you wouldn't be able to, but you wouldn't count as charging.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but because it doesn't specifically say, and because people have asked, like, can you end a surge move?
Yeah, exactly.
And apparently the Khorne rule actually specifically does say, like, the Khorne rule, Berserker's Blood says you can end in engagement range, so this one doesn't specifically say it. So you're just going to have awkwardness in tournaments or events where people are like,
I think you need to clarify based on the tournament, wouldn't you? But to me, I can't see any restriction that would prevent you from doing so, but you wouldn't count as charging. A bit like, you know, consolidating into other units and this sort of malarkey.
That's what I think, but I think it needs clarified because it'll just be contentious. Someone at some table will get annoyed and say you can't do that. Because essentially, if you manage to surge into an enemy, you will fight them before they fight you in their turn, right? Because they didn't charge, you didn't charge, because you're the defending player, you'll choose a model to fight first.
The core rules state that a normal move cannot move within engagement range. The core rules state that an advanced move cannot move within engagement range. This driven by fury move is neither a normal move or a advanced move, right?
Right, and that's how I would read that. The same as a consolidation.
It's just so I think you guys are right, but we need clarification on it, I think.
Yeah. Let's just have a quick look and see what it says about charge moves. And see if that says so.
Right, while you're doing that, I'm just going to answer a couple of chat questions.
Go for it.
So, Alfonso, welcome. Thanks for coming and joining us. He says he's going to collect Catechins, but I cannot find any battle forces. Any advice that you guys can give me to help out and anything to upgrade for Astra Militarum for them? So the Catechins don't have their own battle force. They don't have a combat patrol equivalent anymore. They used to be to start collecting Catechins box set. They've kind of been relegated from a whole army to units in the Astra Militarum as a whole if you buy the GW models. I love them because they're so janky and Rambo-y and silly, and I ran a Catechin army for years. All of my Imperial Guard are Catechins. But that being said, if you can find the old metal miniatures, they are beautiful. The proportions are just better than the plastic sculpt, but they're very expensive now. More realistically, there are loads and loads and loads. Since GW kind of ditched off the divergent Astra Militarum regiments and kind of really lent heavily into Cadia, which is amusing considering Cadia is what blown up, so there ain't no more Cadians. Lots of other companies are starting to pick up the ball that GW dropped with their regiments, and there are loads. If you Google kind of like space jungle fighters, things like that, there are loads and loads of companies making some phenomenal new modern Catechin sculpts that kind of fit into that rule. Now, you're not going to be able to use those in a GW store, but you still can use them if you're playing elsewhere. I've seen conversions made out of jackals and things like that, but it's quite a complex thing to do. The other place to look is if you go on Facebook, there is a fantastic channel. I'm going to find this this group because I'm a member of it. Again, I love my Catechins. And there is like a Catechin Jungle Fighters Facebook group. And if you look on that group, there is some of the coolest conversions of people trying to make whole Catechin armies that you will ever see. So yeah, it's just called Catechin Jungle Fighters. If you join that group on there, there are loads of people, a huge community of people reliving their best life, still buying fish plants and things in the plastic ones to stick on bases and make their jungly fighters very jungly. There's airborne units and all sorts on there, so it's really worth having a look.
I've
So
always
I hope
pronounced
that
them
helps.
Katakan, I think.
Sorry?
I've always pronounced them Katakan, I think.
Yeah. I've seen it as both.
Yeah, it's fair.
But yeah, so they might not have their own battle force at the moment, but the community for them is still massive. Yeah.
And they're supposedly doing other like groups of guard as types of unit and stuff, aren't they? Are they doing like other detachments, other?
Yeah, well, there's not really in the way the army.
Well, they all just Cadians these days, basically.
They're all just Cadians.
Yeah.
They talk about the other regiments, and what they've done is they've put a couple of regiments. They've given a unit in the Codex, or an
like
index,
the Talon Rough Riders or something.
like the Talon Rough Riders, the Death Corps.
Oh, Ratlings! There's going to be Ratlings. I'm so cool. There's going to be Ratlings.
They're beautiful. They're beautiful models.
Ratlings look awesome.
Still got your Cadian squads. They're now. Then you've got your Catagons. So they're all just a unit that you can put into your army now, rather than building your army around it.
I've seen the thing about Kriegs as well.
You still run them, but they don't get any benefits anymore.
There's that Krieger kill team unit, wasn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're around.
So there's cool models, but they're now just units in the Astra Militarum rather than building your Astra Militarum around it. And your standard troops, if you buy them from GW, are just Cadians with different paint schemes on them.
So I've got an answer to the engagement range thing, but I just want to address something that my guy has asked in chat. Can Foot Death Company go in a Rhino? No. The new ones have got the Tacticus keyword, which means they cannot fit in a Rhino.
Yeah,
I got two fat.
Pure and simple.
Very strangely, they can fit in a drop pod. That's worth. But no one's really got any drop pods.
So engagement range. Nowhere in the rules for charging does it say that when charging you can end an engagement range. There is nowhere that it is stated because it is just accepted as part of the rules. Engagement range says that models that do a normal, advance, or fallback or setup cannot end that with an engagement range.
Yeah.
That's all.
So
anything
moves
that's not covered by those criteria by default can. Yeah. Unless the rule says otherwise. So rules as written. Come at me if you think I'm wrong. Driven by Fury and Death Company Dreadnought, you can end the Driven by Fury move in engagement range.
Yeah. So the only. Yeah. Okay. I still don't know how it is that amazingly useful, I guess, but we'll see.
Not massively. I wouldn't have thought so. As you say, they'll either shoot you and kill you, or they won't shoot you.
I mean, I've got two Brutalis Dreadnoughts. I'm going to paint one of them red, and I'm going to paint one of them black, but I'll run them both as whatever I feel like running at the time, I think.
It's fair. I think I've got three, and I'm going to paint them all as red at this point, rather than do them as Death Company, because it's just not worth it. 20 points for full rerolls to hit in melee is nice, but I don't think it's nice enough.
No. I think it's still a bit overcosted. It's come down a lot, but I think I could see him putting a little bit of a premium on it. I could, if it was saying 170, so a 10-point premium. I think it'd be more of a conversation.
Yeah.
But I think at 20, generally people are going to take the Brutalis over it.
Indeed.
I think it really comes down
to be honest,
to...
I'm not running the Brutalis.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it comes down to chaplains, though, right? Like, if we've just agreed that regular Death Company are nerfed significantly, and we're not running that many chaplains, then any argument for like the Death Company Dreadnought being super useful is going to be not there because you're not going to have the chaplains.
It'll depend on what other chaplains are in your list buffing other things. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
You know, I like chaplains, so I tend to run a few of them, but
yeah, I mean, I've got two chaplains on my list, but even with two, I feel like it's not enough for me. I feel like
you can't rely on them being in the right place at the right time or not being dead.
So what's the last unit we haven't talked about? It is the Baal Predator.
Which went up in points. Why did it go up in points?
I think this is a harsh nerf, honestly. I think
I think it's priced out of the conversation now.
I was going to say, like, it makes it more expensive than a Ballista Dreadnought. It makes it more expensive than both other Predator variants, and I would pick all three of those before I pick a Baal.
Okay, let's be fair here to a degree. You've got a 12-inch move, you can re-roll advance rolls, and you can advance and shoot all the guns that we care about.
Yeah, but it kills infantry, right?
Yeah.
And I said this in my stream last night, actually, and someone called me out on it and saying, like, it's not about the fact it kills infantry, it's about the Overwatch. I was like, but in the Overwatch, it still only kills infantry to me. So it's like...
It's great Overwatch use of a strat.
my jump assault intercessor skill infantry, my outrider skill infantry, my assault intercessor, like literally everything I have kills infantry pretty effectively. So why are you making me pay like 135 points to kill more infantry? I don't.
Yeah.
And again, it's another one that is paying for sins that aren't really its fault when you think of the assault cannon.
The assault cannon is complete garbage.
Assault cannon
just
janks.
If you bring the
its
assault
entirety
cannon, you are
attempted.
actively saying, I want to bring an inferior tank. So,
Yeah,
like, for example, I've got a
very
bar
much so.
predator with a twin assault cannon and 2 heavy bolters. Because it's, for a long time, that was my favourite way of running it, because I thought it was just a good, cheap wall of DACA for dealing with orcs and things like that. And I thought it was quite handy for that. Great for clearing screens and things. But with the changes, Overwatch and things like that, it suddenly became the worst way to run a bar predator.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just too many points now. I really do. I don't think we're going to see it much. Because, like you say, John, it doesn't do anything that other things in your army can't already do.
This is a good, like, just real quick, touching on the Flamer thing, right? Like, Redeemers, obviously, they went up in the last Dataslate to 285 points. And there was a period there where, like, double Ball Predator or a Redeemer or maybe even double Redeemer was very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems to have fallen away massively. And I'm
Part
not
of that,
entirely
though,
sure why that is.
Well, it's because if you look at the way that the rules have been going, GW has been pretty harshly nerfing armies that rely on Horde units. So you had the big nerf to Green Tide.
Mm-hmm.
We've just had another nerf to running like the Vanguards and things like that for Thousand Suns. Big units of cheap chaff have been nerfed a few times across this edition. And every time someone says, let's not let people run hordes, big horde clearing flamery units get a little bit worse.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, the Imperial Guard lost their reinforcements to become once per battle rather than every turn. Yeah, so I guess I feel like...
So it's like a stealth nerf has been that they've been nerfing the targets of these flamery tanks.
Yeah, I feel like 125 points, I wasn't picking it. I don't know. I mean, some people were taking them, for sure, like 2 Val Predators to rush on forward and maybe flame a couple of objectives. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing in the world.
It doesn't do that much damage, though. It really doesn't do that much damage. When you're just mathsing out, and I've killed 3 or 4 infantry. Well done. Do you know what else would have killed 3 or 4 infantry? Literally anything else in your army.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't solve a problem for me. That's why I guess I don't run it.
So so taking this in a slightly different direction now, I got another question. Given the points drops and changes and situations where we are right now, the 4 units that we looked at as being heavy anti-armor firepower units at the start of the edition were your Vindicator, your Ballistus, your Gladiator Lancer, and your Predator Annihilator. How do the 4 of them stack up now, and does anything else deserve to go in that sort of category? I don't think anything else has been added to it, really.
Well, I mean, the Ballistus got cheaper, which I guess is nice. I thought it was kind of fine at 140. But I mean, I'll take 10 points if they're willing to give us 10 points on it.
Yeah. So now the Ballistus is 130, the same as the Predator Annihilator.
I mean, they're very similar, the 2 of them.
Yeah.
Arguably, the Ballistus is more survivable due to having a 2-up armor save compared to the Predator.
Yeah, so I think because the Ballistus has some baked-in rerolls as well, and it has a little bit more versatility in that its crack missile is blast and strength 5 and 2d6 shots. Sorry, it's frag missile. I think I would probably take the Ballistus over an Annihilator.
If you're going for cheap value,
yeah,
anti-armor firepower, then okay.
And I think the Ballistus is dead the same as the Destructor, and I think it's honestly that they're both the same. You could take either or.
I don't think they're bad. I
the
think
Gladiator Lancer stayed as is. Still very good.
And is still extremely good, highly focused in purpose, solid anti-armor firepower, but literally nothing else.
I'll tell you one thing we forgot to talk about, though.
Yes.
Looking at these Blood Angels, Mephiston.
Oh, sorry.
We missed him.
Well, I guess
We didn't.
because he didn't change his points cost. He's
He didn't
125.
change his points, did he? So it's not really highlighted. But we were talking when his points come out, is he going to be good or not? Because interesting, I was watching your video about Mephiston the other day, John. And I was thinking, I'm sure we had this conversation about 3 weeks before that conversation about your video on Mephiston, where I was going, I'm not sure I'm running him. I don't think he's because everyone's raving about how good he is, and I think he's too swingy. And both of us came to the same conclusion. Well, it really depends on what the points are.
Yeah, I don't think he's a reliable damage dealer. I think he has a lot of other uses, but he's not a reliable damage dealer. If you hear a little beeping from my end, sorry, it's just the baby monitor's low on battery.
So he's fast and he's tough and he's resilient, ultimately, and hard to shoot at.
And he can swing really high and butcher something or someone, or he can swing really low and do bugger all.
Yeah, my experience is when I play him, he does bugger all.
Yeah. Occasionally, once or twice, he's gone beast mode, but generally he does bugger all. I think he's 125 point distraction Carnifex.
Which has its value.
Yeah. I think I
people
prefer
get worried
him to the
about him.
Sanguinary, honestly. You know, someone was asking me about the Sanguinary yesterday, and I think I prefer Mephiston, but I mean...
I do.
It depends on your playstyle, right? Because I think if you're playing that like all melee Blood Angels list, but I mean I already think that's been made a lot weaker with these changes. I think the
Sanguinary
Sanguinary
melee, the counter charge from the Sanguinary is quite useful, isn't it? But
yeah, but
I'm not. So
5 up, 4 up, feel no pain, auto fight first, auto loan up.
I already
auto
had
quickening, can advance and charge.
I already had doubts on like my personal ability to play that all melee Blood Angels list. I think I just played I play against Colin, who would run double biologists, death guards. So you got 2 giant units of Plague Marines. Plague Marines have really good shooting, and they're all fight first, and they have like 5 bubotic axes in the squad or something ridiculous. And it was like there was just no way for me to dent those without shooting.
You've
units.
been trained against all melee approach due to the meta that you play in and game in.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it means that you've had to come up with a more versatile way of playing, which is great.
So what was the one thing I did want to say was the Vindicator tank actually got a lot better for Blood Angels though, right? Because it can advance and charge now. It can fall back and shoot and charge.
The Vindicator is still prime anti-armor firepower.
People haven't talked about it, but I've run at least 2 Vindicators in more or less every list that I've played in 10th edition.
You pay for it. It's the most expensive of the lot of the anti-armor units that that I mentioned.
It's not that bad, 170
But
points.
because of that, it's got the versatility of being able to kill multiple models due to the blast rule and multiple shots, and it's really, really powerful.
I think that you could actually, like if you don't like Gladiator Lancers, you could just take 2 Vindicators and stick them in reserve. You can just bring both of them in.
The Vindicator's got one huge, major problem that nothing else I've mentioned lacks, except possibly the Predator, and that's the fact that it's first spawn tank.
Well,
don't go on.
Is it going to be dead in a year and a half?
Yes. I think Games Workshop are going to kill everything that is not Primaris in 11th edition. You can shout all you want, but I think it's coming, and I think anyone that thinks it's not coming...
I certainly wouldn't recommend going out and buying.
We've got to be prepared for it. It'll be nice for as long as it's alive, but you've got to kind of prepare for it going the way of the...
I hope when they do that, they do it because they've replaced it with something... Yeah, we're replacing units with new units and getting rid of the old one, and then I'm okay with it. Because I love the Vindicator. I think it's a really cool thing.
It's hopefully it's not another stupid, shitty floating tank, GW. No more floating Primaris tanks.
Please, I want tank tracks, and I found there's a few people now making conversion kits to convert impulsors and things like that into tank track versions.
Awesome! Can you share some links for that in the Discord? Because I'd like to see those.
Boy asks, guard lost reinforcements every turn. Yes, you can only use that reinforcement stratagem once per game now, thank God, because it was dumb when you could use it every turn to bring back a whole 20-man squad.
Oh, yeah, totally.
We've got 60 people watching tonight, which is nice. We've got 22 likes on the video, so if we could get 49 more people to like it, that would be really nice. So
now that we've got a codex and a supplemental codex and points and stuff, I feel like we've got at least another year and a half, 2 years ish of knowing what toys I've got to play with. So I feel more incentivized to play Warhammer today than I did in February earlier this year.
Well, that's always good. I don't know if it's always good, but it's a good thing, I think, if you want to play Warhammer.
We got like some certainty as to what the next significant part of the future is going to look like. So that's nice.
So let's go back then and look at the rest of the Codex Space Marine changes.
Sure.
We've talked about quite a few of these. Captain in Phobos armor, are you going to bring him yet?
No.
Heavy Intercessors took a reasonable points decrease, which I think is quite interesting.
How much are they now?
95 points.
Ooh, that's pretty tasty.
Got a 5. They do lose out on the sticky objectives that regular Intercessors have got, but 95 points, they're very durable.
Yeah, for the toughness they've got. Yeah, that's definitely nice. That's not bad at all.
If you want something that can sit on an objective and not be very easy to move, I could see that being quite. Can you touch the Sanguinary priest to them? I don't think you can.
I don't think so,
No,
because
it's
he's not wearing
Gravis.
Gravis.
Gravis in it, moves.
Yeah.
Because that could be obnoxious otherwise. Outriders dropping to 80 points. I think that's rather nice.
Hey, what? Sorry?
No, sorry, there are 80 points. It's the Invader I'm looking at, sorry.
Yeah. Well, 8 points for 3 Outriders. As John mentioned, they can do some work, which is nice.
Invicta Tactical Warsuits, 125 points now.
I do not understand how you play an Invictor Tactical Warsuit, honestly. I think its guns are kind of rubbish.
Meh.
Its melee is kind of.
Output.
I don't think it does. Because it only has 5 attacks, right? So you drop 2. Yes. So you charge. So you've got 6 attacks. So statistically, you drop 2. So you only really have 4 hits. This thing's got like an 8-inch scout move and then an 8-inch move. So turn 1, you're forward 16 inches. So you're going to be very exposed with it.
Yes.
And I just don't really understand, because I don't think it's a durable unit. So I think like it will charge into. So let's say you move your 8-inch scout move, you make an 8-inch move, and then you advance and charge or something. So you charge into the enemy front lines, turn 1 with your Invictor Warsuit. I think it lifts off like 2 enemy Marines, because it's only AP2, right?
And it's got an ability which is crap and useless and pointless.
Yeah,
I'll tell you one thing I do really like it for, though.
What?
Go on.
Tank Shock.
Tank Shock's based on your toughness now, though, not your strength anymore.
Is it?
Yeah, they changed that.
It.
So it only has.
That was like 3 months ago, mate. Where have you been?
Well, I haven't run a team bit Tactical Warsuit for 3 months.
Nobody's run a Tactical Warsuit, to be fair.
But so I don't know. It's got a reasonable amount of damage output. It's very fast, and it's now only 125 points, which makes it very, very cheap. Is it to shove something, because you can get that into combat on turn 1 if nobody shoots it off the table?
I would rather take Unreliable Mephiston over this, honestly. At the same point cost. Because I think Unreliable Mephiston at least lives for a couple of turns, whereas a Tactical Warsuit goes in, does 6 damage in melee, and then just dies.
If somebody's daft enough to let you charge a vehicle or something with the Invictor,
you said it well enough with Mephiston as being a distraction card effects, and having 3 of these for 300.
I think it's got a bit more damage output, but I don't think, weirdly, I think it's got more damage output, but less durability than Mephiston. Significantly less durability.
Oh yeah, lacking the 4 Pheno Pain will do that.
It's also slightly faster, I think.
Yes and no. It's got
scout move
8 inches,
doesn't
but
get advanced
charge. Yeah,
but yeah, it'd be impossible. It's such a big model as well. It's so hard to hide it. I don't.
Yeah, the hiding is the thing.
I think it would. Maybe if it was down 10 more points, I'd be starting to get interested. But 125, I'm still.
I don't own one. Do you own one?
No, it's like one of the 3 Primaris units I don't own.
Because there was that period in 9th or even 8th, I can't remember now, when running 3 of them became meta for a little while, and just deploying them right up in your opponent's face and then charging on turn 1.
Yeah, because they used to have Infiltrate, you're right. I actually proxied my Redemptors as them a couple of times to see if it was worth buying them. And
I just never could make that work.
Yeah, no, I could never make it work either. Because
as well, didn't you?
Yeah, because like I said, it always felt like they just never did enough in melee to like... They'd smash into one unit, kill a couple of guys, or do 6 damage to a tank or something, then the enemy instantly pick it up because it's only like it's got low toughness.
And the problem with scout move units is you either deploy them somewhere where they're going to be out the way, or you deploy them in harm's way, hoping to win the initiative and then be able to scout them forward.
Yeah.
Or maybe scout them back and out of the way. So it's like a 50-50 chance they'll be useful in any given game, at which point, nah, cheers.
Yeah.
So let's keep scrolling along then. Reavers we've talked about briefly right at the very beginning. Well, people probably weren't here for that.
Yeah.
75 points now for Reavers. They're a unit that can deep strike. They cost 75 points. 75 points of action monkeys, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody taking them over scouts for 10, 20 points
I'd
less?
still
Or
rather
10
take scouts where I can pick them up at the end if they live. Frankly.
Yeah, I think the scouts are still better for that. Like Mark said, you could put them back in strategic reserve. The Reavers don't have any damage output.
No.
Even scouts can have missile launcher.
Fair enough. I think that's as much. Can you imagine someone running 10 Reavers? I've got 10 Reavers. I'm going to put them in turn 1 and we're going to charge. And
do you know?
Here's my AP nothing attacks.
I think that Reavers and the other unit I think is Infernus Marines. I think if those two units were given AP1, they might actually be pretty interesting units.
I'm still glad I own Infernus Marines because they're still great in boarding actions as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, I like mine.
I think that I could be wrong here, but I think just blindly changing points every whatever it is 3 months and never actually changing unit profiles is the wrong way to balance stuff, because we could go through that list. We could go through this list right now, right? And I bet you if we went through, there's like 50 units here in the Space Marine Codex. I bet you could pick 30 of them that are just dog shit that nobody ever uses, right?
Right, so let's say Reavers gain something like Dev Wounds and Anti-Infantry 4 up, or Anti-Infantry 3 up or something. They've still got knives, but in theory, they're like sidling up to you and stabbing you with those knives and doing you some damage.
Maybe if you gave them lethal hits. I think lethal would work quite well because it represents you stabbing them in the back.
That's why I went on Dev Wounds rather than lethal wounds, because it's to get around the AP.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Mark. They need something.
They need one more thing, don't they?
AP0 is just generally pretty bad.
Yeah. Mike's pointing out that Phobos gives them lethals.
Yeah, but I think the problem is the AP over the...
Yeah, maybe. I'm just thinking if you've got a lot of wounds in, you might get a few through. I don't know. So, moving on then, Rowboat dropped a huge amount of points.
Yeah, he went down like 20%. Yeah.
Great.
285 points.
I don't
care.
care.
Playing...
I own Reboot, but I'm not playing Ultramarines. I own him because he's a cool model and he's a Primarch.
He's a cool model. I think if you're running Ultramarines, I think he's almost just auto sake now.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's really good for 285.
But not being much of an Ultramarine myself, I don't really know much else to say with that. Uriel Ventress got better as well for your Ultramarine players because you were all running him anyway, so what he needed was a buff.
Yeah. Really.
Storm Speeders, they've all dropped a little bit.
Still don't care. Oh, excuse me, sorry, I've just got back from holiday. I had a nightmare drive home. I do apologise.
What's the one that gives ignores cover? That's the Hail Strike, isn't it?
I'm still not buying it for that buff.
Yeah, I think these things are so expensive.
Yeah, I think the Hail Strike, though, to 115 points, is quite a decent number of wounds with a reasonable bit of toughness attached to it for 115 points. And its guns are...
Its guns are dog shit, though. It's like got a fucking heavy stubber and like a onslaught cannon. Like, it's absolute garbage. You'll do one wound a turn.
And at least you can hide an impulsor easier than you can hide it because it's on a
ginormous
thing. Yeah.
I feel like an impulsor probably does more damage with its fucking stormbolters, honestly.
All right, so even at then much significantly reduced points cost, we're not taking those.
No.
Suppressors down to 75 points. I think they're pretty good if you're running Angelic Host. And you can get hold of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got £87 to buy 3 of them, I think they're pretty good. Yeah, I would run.
Or the willingness to convert. And if you have a good, alternate legal 3D STL stuff, tell us about it in the Discord. We want to hear about this stuff because that'd be cool. If people want to give suppressors a try as action monkeys and jumping around and moving stuff, then let's have some options.
Their buff is not too shabby. And do you know what? Here's the thing I was saying. If you are running that all melee Blood Angels list,
and you run into it in like a year,
it's -1 to hit for until the. So I hit you one time with a suppressor. Your
Yeah.
whole unit's -1 to hit, like until it's my turn again, basically.
Okay. I mean,
And that's not bad.
that could make Tau pretty laughable.
Well,
Yeah, they're only
I was
75 points.
I was thinking if you were playing against me and you're running your all melee Blood Angels unit, then or your all Blood Angels list, you're going to get fucked by
it's
the
any
Blade Guard
attack,
veteran.
melee or
Yeah.
shooting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So my Blade Guard veterans are going to fuck you up because you're not going to be able to survive their fight first.
It makes a huge difference into some armies. Like even as things like because of the way that the vagaries of like numbers work, it makes custodians so much worse when they're hitting on 3s than when they're hitting on 2s.
Well, yeah, and I fought us.
Well, they can reach
They're
out
100% more likely to fail.
48
Yeah,
inches away, 3 shots a model. Arguably hitting on 4s, but still.
Don't matter. As long as only one shot hit. Don't have to do anything.
So realistically, they're going to hit you to get the debuff on you. Really.
Even with one guy alive, you're still going to be hitting to put out the debuff.
I own 2 squads of these, and I'm genuinely considering sticking one in.
I'm thinking that the suppressors. Well, yeah, like I was. So you would shoot my Blade Guard. You are hitting me with 9 autocannon shots. So statistically, you will actually kill a Blade Guard or something. So you'll kill a Blade Guard at 48 inches, and you'll make my fight first -1 to hit, which is actually kind of meaningful, moving from 3s to 4s. So now your unit maybe doesn't get totaled when they charge the Blade Guard. I was like, suppressors are actually.
So what we're talking about is incidental long-range covering fire, basically, which is what they always should have been.
Yeah, and there's nothing to say if
value to make it legitimately worthwhile considering. Yeah, all right, okay, I can get with that.
But yeah, you can't buy them without spending $87.
Not the official models. Anyway,
There's still quite a few of them. Well, there were quite a few of them still floating around because they were in the. It's not before it was Combat Patrol. It was Imperium.
Yeah, they were in one of the
that's where I got to start mine from. So just looking at the chat for a second, Foz says, Blake Chaplin, going to see any play hanging around Death Company Dreadnoughts?
No.
I don't think so.
Not a chance.
If I'm honest. Cool model. I've got 2. And Mike says his Reavers killed off a couple of Chaos characters last night.
Okay.
I think he's running 10 of them with an F7.
Fair enough. All right.
Like you're a legend, that's why.
Yeah, it happens.
And Purple Appy's looking to find an army that's got the models with the biggest muscles. It's got to be.
It's going to be Khorne, isn't it?
I think it's the moment it's called, especially if you run, because I've seen this a few times, using the Necromunda Goliath models as
Yeah.
That looks great. And that just
Sanguinius, look for a section of the Warhammer community site that says in bright yellow colour, downloads. And go and have a look in there, mate.
Oh, someone's posted it on that.
Awesome. Probably John, if it wasn't you or me.
So, what else we got on there?
Terminators.
Oh no, Mike says he only had 5 of them with the lieutenant. Look at that.
Okay, all right.
And then
I went on a YouTube channel with a bunch of Americans doing an interview for another game a couple of weeks ago, and I was playing a Star Wars unit called Fleet Lieutenant, and they went, "Oh, our life is now complete. We've had a Brit on the show calling it Lieutenant." I said, "Yeah, I pronounced it correctly. This is the way."
So suppressors, I think we're actually all fairly high on if you can get hold of them.
Yeah. Agree with that.
There we go. So Terminator Assault Squad's down to 180 points.
Why?
We've got to be due a new kit of those, ones, haven't we? We've got to be like due an upgrade sprue or something for the regular ones, just to bring them up to par at some point.
Next edition.
I think they'll be next edition. I think that's why they're keeping them more expensive than the regular ones, because they want to sell a better version with better.
Wouldn't they want to sell out the old ones though and make people like?
No, because if they sell them out completely, they'll have to start reprinting them. They don't want to.
No, they won't. It's GW do not reprint stuff they don't want to anymore. They just go out of stock for 6 months and quite happily.
I think that these are the assault version have a worse. The assault version's assault is worse than the regular ones. Yes. The only thing that they maybe slightly have going for them is the fact that they have a storm shield that gives them an extra wound. But I don't think it's meaningful enough to give up the 3-up
anything
ballistic skill and weapon skill. So
Yeah, I
it's,
agree. These days, if you're considering taking Terminator assault units in a Blood Angels army, don't bother and just take Blade Guard. No, not Blade Guard, Vanguard.
Yeah, I
Or
do
regular
think that,
Terminators,
I was
which
going
have
to say,
also dropped down.
I do think this regular Terminator unit for 170 has some value now. Like, I think you could
I've been running them all edition again.
Yeah.
I've been running Terminators all edition,
Hmm.
and I've had great success with them in Sons of Sanguinius and now in Liberator Assault Group. Having Power Fist striking at strength 10, you've got a lot of attacks, you've got damage 2, you've got decent AP.
Yeah.
They're a bit of a pain in the ass to get rid of. They can rapid ingress down, smack in the middle of the board, and punch anybody who comes in close.
Yeah.
They've got enough firepower to remove incidental units and screens. I think Terminators are good.
And
I
the
don't
video
really
you did a
think-
while ago, John, pimping out the Terminator Librarian to go alongside him. Really, really good
Yeah.
choice. Absolutely.
That's
Great
the
choice.
unit. I've been running it with the Librarian or with the Chaplain, and I know John's math says the Librarian is better,
but the
but
chaplain.
I do quite. The Chaplain is not far behind, and I find him quite. I like him. I like running the Chaplain with him.
Well, we've got a super chat coming in 1 second, but yeah, I was going to say the cool thing about the Chaplain, Tony, is the Chaplain doesn't need any CP spent on him.
No.
So, like, the whole game, you just have +1 to wound. And that Chaplain can now have that fright first enhancement as well. So when you are charged, you can still have the 20 power fists with +1 to wounds. So basically, they are able to be armed like the Death Company were armed before this Dataslate or before the new Codex. So if you're looking for a unit that just has fucking 20 power fists and does a fuckload of damage with +1
So
to
you're
wound all
saying
the
use them as
time,
an anvil rather than a hammer?
yeah, and because of rapid ingress, you can bring them in 9-10 inches away. You can move them forward 5 inches. Hopefully,
and
you can
because
charge
they're
from
so
a skewering
tough,
position.
Unlike things like Sanguinary Guard or stuff like that, you've got to be careful when you rapid ingress them because the opponent is going to get a chance to shoot them.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're very careful, you can almost just go, right, blop, there you go, have that. And they have to dedicate a serious amount of, forget whatever their battle plan was, there is now, everything they've planned now becomes kill those Terminators because next turn they're getting smacked in the face because they can't move away because you rapid ingress them, they're coming for you, and it just completely balls up whatever their battle plan was.
How much is 5 regular Termies and a Libby Terminator?
240 points, something like that?
It's 245, which is the exact, basically the same points as it would be as if we had Astaroth plus the 5 Death Company. Maybe it's 10 points more than Astaroth plus the 5 Death Company. So slower.
Terminators are cool. Terminators are always cool.
Super punchy. So I think like, let's go rewind an hour ago when we were talking about you could have that one unit of Sanguinary Guard, you can have that one unit of Death Company. What is your third big melee unit? I think you can choose between Terminators or Blade Guard, right?
For me, it's Terminators. I'm running one unit Terminators, one unit Vanguard, and one unit Death Company.
If we're going to be talking about that now, then thanks very, very much for the super chat, John. Very much appreciated. Thanks for your support. It's so appreciated.
And we will
Love you,
actually let's answer your question because that is the question: 2 max Death Company squads or 2 max Sanguinary Guard squads.
So we discussed this in some depth about what, half an hour ago, give or take, thereabouts. And the short version, which you super chat, we'll give you a decent answer. The short version we came to is probably 1 Death Company squad, probably led by Astaroth, and 1 Sanguard, probably led by Dante, possibly a captain if you need the points. Although there's an argument to be made for 2 Sanguards, 1 led by a captain, 1 led by Dante. Yeah, there or thereabouts. And the reason for that is basically the buffs you get from them and the diminishing returns you get from what you attach to them and the buffs that you can give, everything that you've got. And what use they're going to see on the battlefield, really. What sort of roles they're going to have.
Yeah, Death Company just don't hit as hard as they used to, but Astaroth hits a lot harder than they used to. So you've got 1 damagey out unit there, or you go with the Lamatis one, which makes a little bit more defensive. But I think we sort of came to the consensus that even with that little bit of bonus defensiveness, they're not that good. And we don't think that his damage output buff is as good as Astaroth's for a few points less. So that's kind of where we've come to that conclusion from. And Sanguard are really good. I think they're our premier damage dealing fast unit, but they're just still a little bit expensive to be running a couple of units of them.
Yeah,
At
so
the
you
moment.
got to be really part of your game plan in order
Yeah.
to want to take two
I don't
units
think
or
running
down.
2 big units with a captain and Dante is necessarily a bad thing if that's the army you want to build and that's the
But
kind of
maybe
style
it's
you
a
want
bit
to
too
do.
specialised. Maybe.
Maybe there are a bit too many points for that still.
I was going to say, there are some armies that still have like a lot of characters that have 3 damage melee swings, and that's horrific into the Sanguinary Guard at the moment. I know they are, as some of the new codexes have come out, like for example, if we go back, Astrath used to be able to do 4 damage a swing, now he does 2. Death Guard, for example, they don't have their codex yet. Like, a bunch of their characters do flat 3 damage. And if you run into something that has flat 3 damage, then the new Sanguinary Guard feel really, really horrific when they start dying. Because, you know, every failed save is a dead model, and each model costs 45 points, or 50 it was before today.
Exactly. But equally then, they are 2 up, 4 up. They have got -1 to be wounded. They have got -1 to be hit in melee combat, because you're going to be running them as a character, because otherwise why are you even bothering? But yeah. Okay.
Joshua says 1. You say 1, but what size? I would run the Death Company as the 10. I would run the Sanguinary Guard as a 6.
Depending on what you wanted to do with them, if you want to maximise damage potential, run them as a big blob as possible. Yeah.
I just think that they're not really good for anything except damage potential.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
you
if
take
you just
jump
want to
assault
do
incesses
anything else,
if you want
take
a
jump
bunch of
assault
units
incesses.
that are cheap and running around doing stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Vanguard Veterans, the last unit that's changed, right?
Have they changed?
They have.
They went
They've
up
gone
5
up
points.
We have talked about these already. They're just too many points now.
I think
they've lost their ability to buff them up with the Sanguinary Priest, and going up to 110 points, I think, just knocks them completely out of the conversation.
Yep, I agree with that. Sadly.
So looking at chat again, Foz prefers aggressors over Terminators. Ryan still likes his Terminators, I think. His aggressors. The reason that I prefer Terminators over aggressors is I like to rapid ingress them. I don't need to worry about transporting them around the table.
They're both slightly better than each other in slightly different ways. Aggressors, they've got the toughness and the wounds, and the Terminators have got the slightly better armor.
They've got the same wounds,
in run save, which is cool. Plus, Terminators have got the sort of like the cool nostalgia vibe going, and awesome new models, which is pretty awesome.
But how many points are aggressors now?
120 for 3.
120 for 3, so they're
40 per model.
So they're 40 each.
So they're more expensive than Terminators. They've got the same number of wounds as Terminators. They've got a worse save. They've got 1 extra point of toughness. They've got slightly more shooting output, and you can synergize them. I don't know why I would take them over Terminators. I really don't know. What do they bring more than Terminators? Less wounds? Toughness, that big deal?
I agree with you. I think I'd always take Terminators over Aggressors. I think it's a sad thing because I think Aggressors are cool models.
Yeah.
But they don't...
Different units to go with them. They can be joined by a biologist who can have an upgrade or something or whatever.
If you're running Gladius, you can put the combo on him, but now that's so expensive.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
The 6 aggressors, you're looking at 240 points. The biologist is now 70 points, so you're looking at 310. Then the upgrade to him as well, fire discipline. Oh, you're looking at 250 point. No, hang on, 350 points for that combo now.
Yeah, I mean it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It was ages ago when that combo was good, I guess. So
is there anything
2 or 3
else?
times since then.
Is there anything else that we've overlooked that is worth considering?
For Space Marines.
Yeah.
Well, we've got another question here, which I think is worth a little talk, just going back over.
Yeah.
What's the best units for mixing in for shooting? So it's not just melee. Marius says Terminator seem pretty good for that. So adding a bit of shooting support for your melee units. If we're going to run, because we've sort of said we're going to run 1 unit of Death Company, 1 unit of Sanguinary Guard, and 1 unit of another. I like Terminators. I think you were saying you like Terminators, John.
I do, yeah.
I see an argument for Terminators.
For that 3rd unit. What are we going to use? What sort of fire support? I think I've already put my cards on the table and said I'm going to run 2 Vindicators.
I mean, 2 or 3 Vindicators will be worth their weight in gold. Absolutely, I'm fairly sure on that. For as long as we've got them in the army.
Ballistics, maybe?
I was going to say, I think the what do you call it? The usual suspects are the Ballistus Dreadnought, a Predator with las cannons, because I think both variants are really good. Like you said, the Vindicator, the Gladiator Lancer, or maybe now the unorthodox pick would be like a couple of units of suppressors.
I don't think they'd be good for doing damage.
But they are good for their other buffs. How much is
But
repulse?
again,
Does repulse changing points?
three
No,
units
it
of
isn't.
3 suppressors for 225 points. It's not the worst thing to just like chuck some shots downfield. They won't dedicated kill stuff, but
I think against some armies that could be devastating, but against a lot of armies, I just don't think it's going to make enough of a difference.
yeah.
We've got another super chat come through from Philip Perigo. He says 40 points of fire discipline is well worth it. You basically get another entire unit's worth of shooting. You absolutely do. If you're running Gladius, I think you're still running fire support with it.
Yeah,
But-
because you need the synergy of getting the increased crit rate out of it in order to make
Yeah.
the most of it. I totally agree.
But if you're not, I just don't think that the aggressor's combo is worth it anymore. I think now you're probably putting fire discipline on something else, maybe putting it into a unit of Hellblasters or something. I think you get more out of it now.
Well, I mean, I think the reason it got nerfed was the Eradicator's Biologist fire discipline. I think even at the increased points cost, it's still fairly strong.
Especially if you're playing Dark Angels.
Why is
they
such
were running? They were running 6.
I've not really read that. What's the synergy there that I'm not aware of?
Synergy?
Dark Angels running that combo because that was the big.
Because I thought it was Salamanders got the whole Melter synergy, not the Dark Angels.
They did, but I think it's their characters.
Okay.
But we were seeing
it with a Biologist and...
Yeah, we were seeing it with Inner Repulsor Executioner as well, which I said, or Inner Repulsor as well. Which
so they can jump out and jump back in again. And
jump out, jump back in again, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, cool.
I think it's still very powerful. I think 40 points might be a little bit too much for it.
I was never really that hot on Eradicators because you can't deep strike them generally.
And that's always been my issue with Eradicators. Aggressors as well, to be honest.
Yeah, a lot of people put them in transports now, I guess. Land Raiders were very, very...
I still like Land Raiders.
The Land Raider Redeemer I don't hear talked about at all anymore at 285 points. That's like dropped off the radar completely.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I really like my one now and I put a lot of time and effort into building it and painting it.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine is they say stuff like, we don't nerf units into oblivion, but they friggin' do. Yeah. And then they never bring them back down, right? Like, you know, a good example of those is Desolation
not never,
Marines.
But definitely extremely rarely, yeah.
Yeah, like Desolation Marines came in at like, 140? They went up to 170, they went up to 200. I don't think I even saw barely anyone playing them at 170.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I actually bought 15 of these guys and they've literally sat in a drawer for like a year now.
200 for 5 is now just a huge dead duck. Yeah.
But yeah, I think Games Workshop honestly need to be more like so obviously the weapon profile in the Desolation Marines, for example, hasn't been great, or you know, like we could say the same about those Storm Speeders, right? The Hail Strike. The Hail Strike's a friggin' joke. The weapons on it are an absolute joke. But I think they need to be open to changing some of the weapon profiles, which they don't seem
devil's
to be.
advocate here, and I'm not exactly a Games Workshop apologist. I would hope most people here would think about that, but they're changing a lot more now than they ever used to 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So in that, it has massively improved over the days where an entire 4-year edition could pass with no change or balance pass whatsoever on anything.
Multiple editions would sometimes change.
Yeah.
You know? You go through like 2 or 3 editions before you've got any change to your units. I played Sisters of Battle, so my Witch Hunters Codex, I think that was my only way of playing Sisters of Battle for about 4 editions.
So I'm not saying your complaints are wrong, John, but I am saying that maybe we're finding more things to complain about the better GW are being about stuff. Because they are being better.
I think there's just a lot of units that seem to be left in the dirt, I guess, is how I would call
the
it.
people who've spent money and time and effort on painting and building and all of this stuff. Yeah, I completely
And
agree.
it's just sad. You know, you spend all that, you put so much love into it. It's the same issue with Legendary, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, when you sit there and you think, I remember spending 100 hours working on this unit, and now he's never going to come back out again.
Yep.
Which is heartbreaking.
It's depressing. It makes you want to not bother anymore. Yeah.
But it's the way they're going, and it has made, as much as I don't like it from a collector's and a modelling point of view, and the sort of gamer that I am, from a balanced point of view, the game is the most balanced it's ever been.
Yeah, they are improving that. Yeah, okay.
I don't think anybody can really say that it isn't at the moment. I think everything now is within kind of a 10% win rate of each other. I don't think there's anything outside of that.
I'm aware of. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just have one final shout out to
Go for it.
the Hammerfall bunker. 175 points. How do we feel about that?
I mean,
And they haven't. My Thunderhawk's still to 840.
still a joke, right? Obviously.
Is the Thunderhawk even on this list? I didn't see it. No.
Yeah, it's still on there. 840 points, bottom of the Space Marines. So
sorry.
While we've been talking about these, let's have a little whiz around some of the other chapters and other units and things like that. Thousand Suns, they were sitting right at the top of the meta for a while. They've been hit very hard, mostly on their characters. Magnus is now 465 points.
Yeah, I'm going to text Miles
that's
right now.
expensive.
You ready for the game, Miles?
Rubric Marines, they've put the cost of the little baby unit up by a bit, which I think is fair, because you're seeing a lot of little tiny units of sorcerers running around. So really what they've hit there is the sorcerers, and I don't think that's unreasonable. They were getting a little bit overpowered. Tyranids have had a couple of little tickles. Old One Eye's gone up a bit. Carnifex has gone down a bit. Victor's gone up a little bit. Nothing really outrageously interesting going on. World Eaters, they've hit the Master of Executions again. I think he's getting to a point where we're not really going to see him. And Angron, but you're still going to run Angron. You've just lost a few points for everything else.
What was Angron before? Like 400?
Yeah, 400 and something. I think he's only got by about 10 points.
Okay.
Tau, nothing's really changed there. The Riptide's gone up again. Why? Nobody's running Riptides.
Yeah, because I don't know, and they've put a
Nobody's run
Riptide in the
Riptides
big new. They've
They're
put a
playing for
Riptide
the
in
Sins
the
of
big new
8th
Christmas
edition.
box as well, haven't they? It's like they
Yeah,
want to
they're
promote
playing for
people
the Sins of
buying it.
8th edition. All the crew have got a bit cheaper. And Farsight's got a bit cheaper, which is nice. He's really cheap now.
Oh, all those
95
new
pence.
Coot models got cheaper. That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, they're nice models, but there's nobody who's running them. The Space Wolves took a big hit on their Thunderwolf cavalry, but they also took a kind of a stealth nerf, because the runny, quickie Space Marine detachment that everyone was using them in took a nerf to the enhancement that they were using.
Yeah.
So we're not going to see, at 240 points for 6, we're not going to see 3 units of 6 Thunderwolf cavalry and that upgrade in Stormlance anymore. Logan's gone up a little bit. Bjorn's gone up a little bit. Hounds of Morkai have gone down because, Reavers. Rolling along a little bit. Orcs have had quite a few points. They've only had points reductions. They've only had buffs because they'd sort of completely dropped off the meta with the changes to Green Tide.
Yeah.
That they had a little bit a while ago. Necrons, minor changes across the board. Nothing too outrageous seems to have changed there. The monolith's now at 400 points, which is good. Things of those haven't really changed a bit. Imperial Knights, points drops to all the big knights, but I still don't think we're going to see them much. Canis Rex has gone up a bit. I still think we'll see the same as Chaos Knights. Yes, you've made the big ones a bit cheaper. You're still mostly going to see spam little ones.
Yeah.
That new Night Christmas box is not the worst thing in the world either.
Nice, isn't it? But did you notice that it's not quite as good as it looks?
Yeah, I did notice that the actual knight itself isn't the full series of
they've not put the weapon options in
possible knights, but I did notice that all 4 armages could be either type rather than just definitely 2 of one and 2 of the other. So, they give everything over the way.
Imperial agents haven't really changed, except subductors are now a little bit more expensive than other people's armies, which is because everyone was going, oh, actually, that's a really tasty unit with inbun saves for very few amount of points. So they've stopped doing that. Grey Knights, a couple of minor changes to their Terminators. Nothing exciting. Gene Stealer cults, they've all gone down a little bit, but we have had that warning in the article that they're going to do something about cult ambush. So
Good.
we don't know what they're going to do with cult ambush. I do think that these changes, because they've had basically a points buff across the board, I think we might see some Gene Stealer cults armies sneaking in to win a few tournaments at the moment. I think they're deceptively strong.
That'd be funny.
Which is for the 3 people who have a Gene Stealer cult army in the world. Drukhari took some pretty hefty nerfs to their big hitters. So kind of mostly the characters, Archons, Lilith, all these sort of all gone up in points. Incubi have gone up in points, which is a bit sad. I don't think they really deserved that.
Okay.
So they just got a bit of a nerf. Death Guard got a bit of a buff, but not majorly. Minor improvements. Morty got a little bit cheaper. Terminators. Why did they improve Death Shroud Terminators? Everyone was running them anyway. They were fine. And of all the things to improve, it just seems a weird one. The Putrefier's gone down a little as well. Dark Angels took a few nerfs because they were sitting at the top. But they've taken a couple of buffs in the Ravenwing stuff, and the Lion's gotten a bit cheaper. He's 285 points, the same as Robo. Cal Space Marines, minor changes across the board. Warp Talons have got a bit cheaper in the little unit, which is nice. We might see them. They're trying to kind of encourage little units rather than just using damage dealers. The Dark Commune, that's one of the big units that was been a little bit exploited with the surge moves.
Yep.
So they've taken a fairly big hit now. 5 models is 80 odd points. So I think we might see those disappear. We might see some more other stuff coming in. Other than that, they've mostly had buffs, to be honest. It's just the little Horde units again. We mentioned earlier about flame units are getting useless. It's because all the Horde units keep getting hit. Chaos Demons, minor changes. I don't know why the Ren Master went up a few points. He wasn't that good anyway, but other than that, nothing interesting. Black Templars got hit really hard, which I feel like is a bit unfair because they weren't exactly storming the meta. But the big units that they can run, so your 20-man units of Crusaders and the Primaris Crusaders all took big hits to their costs. As did Grimaldus. I mean, what they don't want is people running around with massive durability in 20-man squad units, clearly.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and that's what they were doing. So,
but at the same time, even doing that, they weren't doing that well in the meta. I think they're one of the lower divergent chapters. I think they were the lowest divergent chapter for win rate.
What's next?
Astra Militarum. Tank commanders have gone up in points quite significantly, but they also now have the squadron keyword, which means they can benefit from their own orders and they can take more orders in general. So it's a bit of a side grade for them. They've gained that extra. Oh, they also get born soldiers now as well, which they didn't before. So they've had a fairly hefty buff, which kind of lines up with the fairly hefty points increase. So overall, that's not got to change. Scout Sentinels will also take before. They're even more of one now because they're 55 points a pop. That's super cheap, like unnecessarily cheap. Bullgrin have had a bit of a nerf. Points got up by quite a chunk, which is good because I've got sick of seeing 18 Bullgrin in every Astra Militarum tournament list.
yeah, true.
Yeah. So, okay, that's a good thing. I think overall, field ordnance batteries that come down a bit. Nobody's going to run them. I think it's still the cheapest source of indirect fire, but it's not that good indirect fire.
Indirect fire is
Heavy
crap,
weapon
yeah.
squads, ultra cheap, but they die to a fart. And Ogrins, yeah, all right, they're cheaper. Whatever, nobody's running them. Eldari got points buffs across the board. I don't think anything went up, but it's not really meaningful enough. It's going to improve internal balance, except that Falcons and Fire Prisons are even better than they were, so we're just going to see more of them than we already were. But other than those, it's things that didn't get played have got a little bit of a buff. The Wraith Knight has dropped to 495 points from about 520, I want to say. We're still not going to see it.
Doesn't make a blimey difference.
Doesn't make any difference. We're not going to see it. Mechanicus, they've taken a few changes. I think overall it's a bit of a nerf to them. So their big kind of tournament-y builds were mostly based around Skitari. And it's the Skitari that have taken the hit mostly. The Skitari Vanguard units are now up to 95 points per unit. I think that's a 10-point increase. that's not necessarily a bad thing that we might see seeing some of the Rangers and things like that. The tech priests have all come down in points, which is good. We might see some of the other, because basically we only saw the Skitari hunters in competitive AdMech. We might see with the reduction in points cost for the tech priests and that some of the other ones coming through a little bit. Iron Striders have gone up a little bit. That funny fella on the stilts, he's come down in points a bit. As of that, Sulphur Hounds, Electro Priests, these sorts of bits and pieces. So they've had a few points buffs, they've had a few points nerfs, but overall I think it's a nerf because their strongest units have all been hit fairly hard, especially in that Vanguard.
Okay.
Custodes, minor points buffs across the board. All three of their Dreadnoughts have come down by about 10 points, but we're still not going to see them because they're too slow. Trajan's come down to 140 points, which is a thing. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, really. He was a little bit overcosted before, but we still saw him all the time. Virtus Praetors are now 140 points, so you're not quite shooting yourself in the foot quite as bad as you would if you ran any of the jet bikes. But I'm still not running them even 140 points. Sororitas, they were probably the top tier army in 40k at the moment. And they've taken big hits. The Battle Sister squad has gone down a tiny bit, but everything else more or less has gone up. The kind of build, it was the Bringers of Flame was the detachment that was the most awkward one. And everything in that was powerful, more or less, has gone up in points. The 12th St. Catherine has gone up to 250 points.
Yeah, it's crazy. She's only toughness 3.
Yeah, it's a huge points increase for that. And yes, the kind of guaranteed 6s was very, very powerful, but I think we're not going to see it nearly as often as we did. The Castigators have gone up, the Emulators have gone up, the Dialogus has gone up, mostly because you could run her on her own. And she made a super cheap and efficient unit. Morven Vale's gone up by a fairly big chunk, as have the Paragon Warsuits. They're still very powerful, but they're getting very, very expensive for what they do. I think this is probably going to knock the Adeptus Sororitas off the top slot and somewhere in the middle, to be honest.
Yeah,
because they've hit all of those Miracle Dicey units.
Yeah, it's very targeted. That's really bad.
It's very targeted. And it's a clearly designed nerf. And I think that covers everybody from a point of view. Have I missed anything? Probably. Almost certainly.
The only two things I think I want to mention that we haven't already discussed about in even slightly about current affairs in 40k stuff is so Demon Primarch Fulgrim on the way.
Yes.
Emperor's Children coming in the new year.
I'm excited about it.
At some point in 2025.
I hope they look good. Yeah, I hope they look good. I hope they do a better job with Fulgrim than they did with Angron. That's still one of my most hated models.
A full unit of noise marines is going to be nice. New noise marines.
I'd love that. I'd love to see that.
Can I play devil's advocate and ask, do we need more factions?
Always. How else will GW, the struggling little indie company that they are, continue surviving and reporting growth to their shareholders?
I like it because I like it from a narrative and a modelling perspective, and I feel like the Emperor's Children, the same as it's like saying, do we need? It's like saying space.
Right. So on one hand, you've got
new models,
a new faction, Emperor's Children. On the other hand, you've got another set of Space Marine data sheets, like 5 or 6 more new Space Marine data sheets to be added. Which would you prefer?
I'd probably prefer if they could actually finish Votan and give them more than like 2 data sheets.
Yeah.
Would that be fair to say?
I think it's a reasonable thing to say.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, Dark Mechanicum are now a new army in Legions Imperialis as well. So who knows? Maybe we'll get Dark Mechanicum in 40k finally.
Other interesting news: have you seen just how much money the Grey Tide Studios has started to make with the Crimson Lords?
Is it a lot?
So
How do we know?
I'm just getting up the exact number. So I want you to guess because
Is
it's
this
a
a
Kickstarter, isn't
Kickstarter
it?
or something? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. I want you to guess just how much money the Kickstarter has raised.
Oh, I don't know. 200,000 or 300,000?
Yeah. Well, not quite, but $120,000 for a set of STLs that are already made.
Nice.
I've got the
That is-
physical ones coming. They've been
That is-
dispatched.
That is massive. That is huge money
they're good
for
work.
this kind of for a set of conversion pieces. $120,000. That is phenomenal. They must be laughing all the way to the bank. So well done, Great Eye Studio.
Absolutely.
But on the converse point of view, GW must be looking at that going, hang on. This little tiny studio making resin 3D printing bits has just taken $120,000 of our money because people want to have fancy Blood Angels.
Well, I hope so. But they might also be looking at bigger fish and going for the wider mass market, such as it is, rather than little niche market.
There's clearly, because this is only really, because I know they do have the physical things, but most people are not going to. This is really aimed at people with 3D printers. It's a pretty tiny market they've been able to sell to.
Yeah, and the cost, if they did this, they'd do this as a resin forge world, and it'd cost 3 times as much as what these guys are charging.
I'm sure it would, yeah.
Minimum.
So I'm just got to be sitting there going, did we done fucked up with our Sanguinary guard that everyone's going out and buying these ones because they want jump packs for wings on them?
Yeah. The last thing I've got to mention is you and I, Tony, need to have a chat now.
Go on, then.
6 weeks we've got until this doubles tournament.
We have, yeah.
And now the Codex is here and the points are here. We've got no excuse not to firm up what we're actually going to bloody well do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got to put on a good show because James Gibbs is bringing his mates up for it as well.
He is. And I can't remember the rules as well, because isn't it that if I bring something, you can't bring it?
If we're running the same faction, then if you have a data sheet, then I cannot have the same data sheet in my 1,000 points.
And we are running the same faction.
We're going to have to actually coordinate and plan and work out what the actual F we're going to be doing.
Yeah, I haven't got a clue now what I'm doing. I mean, if I can get it finished.
We could start with who's running 2 Vindicators, you or me.
I mean, it's got 3 colours on it. It's good for tournament play. I see 3 colours.
It's 550 points of fail.
I mean, it looks awesome, and I'd fight for your right to take it. But do we want to do we want to put in a good show, or do we just want to have a laugh and get our asses kicked for a day?
I mean, have a laugh and get our asses kicked for a day.
Yeah, probably. Let's face it. Not exactly at the peak of our game at the moment.
I'm all up for the outrageous meme. Foster said we should do a stream where we work out our army lists.
All right, so I'll take all of the captain data sheets and I'll make 1,000 points out of captains.
Yep.
And oh no, this is going to be a bad idea. We could just do a live stream where the two of us just.
I kind of like the idea of doing a live stream.
That could be, yeah.
Where we just discuss
we can't wait 2 weeks for it because I've got to get painting.
Yeah, I'm nowhere near ready to roll.
Oh.
Surely you have enough to make 1,000 points of Blood Angels without any.
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, easily. But
it won't be like chosen stuff. It'll just be whatever crap we can throw
Random
together.
Crap.
Of the whole overlap thing, we can't run the same stuff.
Yeah.
Someone runs Someone runs all the Predators, 3 Destructors, 3 Annihilators, 3 Ball
No,
because
it's
1,000 points.
Because it's doubles, and each army is 1,000 points. Each 1,000-point army is limited to 2 of the same data sheet maximum.
Oh right, okay.
So mine could be 2 Brutalis, 2 Ballistus, etc. Stuff like that. That sort of thing.
I see. Okay, that's interesting.
So it's a little bit more nuanced than
normal building. Okay.
Normal building,
which is cool, but we just got to get it ready so that we know what we're preparing for 6 weeks' time.
Cool. Okay. I guess on that bombshell, we've been live for about 2 hours.
We have.
Is that us?
I think it's time for us to say or
It's
bid
been
you all
good.
adieu.
It's been good. Thank you, gents.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you,
been a lot of
audience.
fun.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to us chat shit. If you've got any value out of what we're doing, if you think it's fun, leave us a comment, chuck us a like and subscribe, all that usual stuff. Consider supporting us on Patreon for a couple of quid to help buy us new stuff to read about and all this kind of shit. For your amusement, it'd be very much appreciated, and we can keep on mocking John, because that is why we're all here, really.
Yeah. Takes it way too seriously. Catch you all on the next one.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Good
Cheers.
night.
Bye bye.